Hi, everybody, and welcome to Creators Corner here on the Tabletop Express. If this is your first time coming aboard the Tabletop Express, or the first time you're coming here to watch a video, be it live or after the fact, just a little bit about Creators Corner. This is where I have a conversation with creators, designers, artists, or just creative people in the board game industry. And I'm so excited today to have Katia Howatson join me to talk about really art at the core of it, but really the art of meeples and board game components. And you are doing some really cool things I want to get into. But before we do that, I have to start with the question I ask everyone, which is, what is your board game origin story? How did you get into board games, at all in the first place?
Well, I grew up playing board games with my sister. The usual like Monopoly, Clue. We played a lot of card games. We, I even played board games with my grandma. Like, it's funny because recently I made a post about Waterworks, like about some of the older games that I've played, and Waterworks was one of them, and I remember playing that with my grandmother. So, and I mean, we grew up playing Scrabble with our mom, and so I was always like, I always played board games, but obviously, you go off to college and whatnot. Like, it's a lot of us kind of stop at that point. So, I would say it was probably in 2008 or so that someone showed us Dominion, and that's what brought me back. Dominion, and then we played, um, gosh, what was it? A Love Letter,
Yeah.
the Catan, the two-player one.
There's the dice. There's a variety. There's so many of them now. It's hard to keep track.
It's an old, like, it's an older one. It's a is it Catan No, it's not Duel. I forget what it's called, but it was like a two-player card game, and we played a lot of that. And that was kind of what brought us back to board games, and then finding Facebook groups about board games. Then it's all downhill from there.
It's funny though, because I think a lot of us go on that journey. I had a similar journey where I had it in my DNA, I like to say, and I kind of forgot about it for a while. But it brings joy to my life now. So I'm happy that I have it now, and I'm happy to be chatting with you about it. I got to ask you, so your Kickstarter project that you have out right now, and I should note, if you're watching this, you are on Instagram, your Board Game Art Creations as your handle on Instagram. People can go see the really cool art you do. It's really incredible what you do with these meeples. But I go into this. What made you want to create a board game calendar that included some of the work that you had done? And you can explain a little bit about what you do with the meeples, certainly for those who are unaware of what you do, but fascinated by how the calendar idea came into play.
Well, when I started making images at the beginning, somebody said, you should put all of these in a calendar. And that idea sort of came back a couple times. And it was last year when I was in touch with Gamelin and I did their logo. We ran a giveaway and all that. That it was the idea was brought up to me by somebody from Gamelin, and they said, "Yeah, you should do a calendar." And then we kind of talked, like, it could be a publisher focused calendar, like where I partner with publishers and then put their put their logo in there, but also do an image representing one of their games. So that was sort of where the idea originated. And and then I decided to add on, like coasters. Last year I had 2 designs of coasters. I had, game themed related ones, and then I had the Wingspan inspired one. And then I did some magnets and prints, I think. So this year I have, coasters from last year, but I have new magnets. I have the prints, and I'm doing coffee mugs as well. So yeah, like it was that kind of idea that was floated around by the board gaming community, but also, having somebody to sort of push you and say, oh yeah, you could totally do this. Um, So yeah, what I've been doing is basically I use my board game components and spare parts that I now have thanks to, several publishers who have sent components to help with, having more colors, having more shapes to work with. And so I use my components and I make a piece of art on a table, usually with a black background, like a black cloth. And yeah, I try and be creative with it, and I like to sort of come up with my own design. But sometimes if someone wants, the cover or something from the cover of their game or a specific character, then I'm a little bit more bound to that if I want it to be really recognizable. But otherwise, like, I like to get inspiration from the game and then pick something to represent or to uh, like to make something pretty out of it. But yeah, so that's what I do.
Well, it's interesting. You noted something and you talked about hearing it from the community. So you really do get that community feedback. I know you're active. Board Game Revolution as a Facebook group. So you've got, you've got a place, like a community where you can get that. Obviously I connected you on Twitter. So you're on Instagram. So you're getting feedback. And it sounds like you've got a great reaction to this particular project. I know you funded. So first, let's say at this point, as we are talking, you have funded. So I want to make sure I say congratulations. What has the Kickstarter experience been like for you around the project?
It's always so chaotic. I mean, the night before you launch, you don't really sleep well. um, it's stressful. I mean, not because I didn't think I was going to fund. It's just the logistics around all of it, and especially now with the whole European VAT, with all that. Like, it's everybody's scrambling to try and figure that out. And then the shipping delays that I'm hearing about, which obviously is super stressful because it's a calendar and I have like a certain deadline that I need it to be in people's hands by. So so the stress doesn't go away until people have their stuff. So
Right.
it's yeah, for me it's a very, very stressful experience. But it's also when you start seeing posts of people receiving what you made, it's incredible. Like last year when I started seeing posts of people receiving their calendars, like it was just like I made that. And that was, yeah, it was overwhelming. And yeah, I don't know, like that was the whole purpose to begin with, was to do the Kickstarter just so that people could have something in their home with my art in it if they so wanted to, because the response to my art pieces was so positive that I just wanted my stuff to be out there. Like I wasn't in it to, make $1 million. Um, so yeah, and that's why I decided to do it again this year, is because the response was really, really good. Um, and so I'm already at 600 backers, and I'm hoping that I can at least reach what I did last year. um I have I have like still a few surprises left to to
Well, that's
unveil, but
part
we're
of
unlocking stretch goals, so that's good. Yeah.
Well, that's part of the fun when you're on a Kickstarter, seeing what surprises, what's on the way. How do you go through the process for something like this? And obviously, I know you have some relationships. You talked about getting parts and bonus, extra pieces from publishers, etc. But what is the process of a picking game you want to do? Does part of it come from a game you love? Is it feedback from the community? I mean, that seems like that would be the challenging part when you think of you've got only so many months, so you've only got so many options that you could do artistically for each month.
Right. So, well, this year I tried to pick publishers that weren't in the calendar last year. Some of them had expressed interest in being part of the project, so I figured if I'm going to, have new publishers this year in the calendar, then may as well just do all new publishers.
Yeah.
The only returning one is Grand Gamers Guild, which is the one on the 10 by 10 challenge sheet at the end of the calendar. But otherwise, I mean, like I choose the publisher, and what I did is when I reached out to them and we agreed to partner on this, I had, for the most part, I had suggestions for them as to which game we might want to pick to get represented. Um, and some of them had different suggestions, which is fine. At the end of the day, it's their piece of art to keep. So, so we sort of discussed, well, which game do you think, would best represent your company in the calendar? Which one do you think would look the best? Because some games, as much as it might be the more popular one for a publisher, it might not be one that is as nice looking in terms of like an art piece. um, so I kind of went with that approach, where it's like trying to pick a game that would have a cool image for it, at the same time something that people have played, or something that just came out maybe that people are excited to play, like Lost Ruins of Arnak. The
Right.
timing was just, and then it's being, awarded prizes and whatnot, so it's obviously like that was just, yeah, great timing. But I knew, as soon as I saw the cover of the game, I knew that I could do something really fun with it. And yeah, I mean, like the publishers, for the most part, send a game, like usually the one that they want represented, they'll send that game so that I can make sure that I always have pieces of that game in the art, in the mosaic that I'm creating. Um, so yeah, in every one that I make, I make sure that there's a piece of that game in there. So
Yeah, I was wondering about, sometimes the most popular game is not the most visual. Like the world can talk to me about, for example, Castles of Burgundy. It's never going to be the most beautiful looking game, even in the reprint, even the
yeah,
redo. It's not gorgeous, right?
right.
But it's more than that, obviously, with a game. So this, I felt like when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, that must be a challenge to pick that. Because as a publisher, you want probably one thing and you kind of try to strike a balance. Uh,
Right.
I'm intrigued by that process. So thank you for sharing. You know, to take this a slightly different direction, though, what about your personal taste in art? What kind of art do you like? Is there something that you're into? Outside of the meeple world, is there an art piece or an artist or something that kind of catches your eye personally?
So I have like two sets of art pieces here in my basement in the game room. I have for I mean, some people might know him because I saw his prints was Stanley Morrison. He does dragons, and I bought 8 different dragons that are all drink themed. So different cocktails, and the dragon matches the type of cocktail glass that he's in. Like, they look amazing. Like, look him up, Stanley Morrison. That's one of my favorites. And I also have 3 robots from the Transmission series by Matt Dixon. And then he just had a game on Kickstarter. I believe it was Adam West. I forget the company, the publishing company, but Matt Dixon, his little robots that I've been in love with, basically, like, that's what the game is based on. So that was one of the first insta back that, for me, it was a no brainer. I love his work. Yeah, I would say those two are probably like the ones that speak the most to me.
And let's talk about, you're talking about being in the game room, in that space. What's the games that are? I mean, the companies the companies obviously, are sending you pieces I know to play, but what are the games that you're playing? What's the kind of, you talked about Dominion earlier, so some deck building, obviously, but is deck building your thing? Is it something else at this point?
Not even like, not, I would say it's not really anymore. We don't even have that many deck builders. I would say probably that one. Like, I don't even own Clank. Um,
You
and
should.
I like
That's
to play
that's
it.
a Clank is a good one. I prefer Clank in space, but
I've never played the one in space, but yeah, I really enjoy Clank. Um, I would say my type of game, I love abstract games. Um, Anything puzzly, where you have to be strategic. I mean, I'm a fan of, so Garinto, that just came out, is like one of my favorite abstract games. It's so It's so good. I love Sagrada, um, the regular Azul as well. Like I really enjoyed that. We have Through the Desert that I really really enjoyed. Sagani, like all the kind of game that I don't know. You just have to figure out the best combination or the best. I don't know. That's just this my thing.
It sounds like you like a game that makes you think.
Think.
Think. You
Yeah.
like that not like not like analysis paralysis per
Oh,
se,
but
but
that's the thing though. Is that I tend to like games that cause AP, and I don't have AP much. Like it's a rare that I get really really stuck. Um, but I tend to love games that are AP triggering for sure. Like Five Tribes is my all-time favorite game, and yeah, that's one that people struggle. Whereas for me, like I'm looking at the board, and when it's not my turn, I'm looking already at different options. So it's like, okay, so if I go here, da, 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 okay, so then I already have a couple things planned. So it's like if you move and you mess up the setup, chances are I still have something there, but I'm still able to somewhat quickly gauge what just happened and if there's something better in there. So I don't know, like that's just my style of play that's where I excel versus um like games where you're trying to maximize your turn so that because of what you did previously, now your turn is going to be you're going to do this and then it triggers this and it triggers this and and then you end up having like these super turns. That's not, I mean, I can only plan so far ahead that that's where I find I usually don't win the game when we play those type of games. Um, but and again, right? Like they're totally different because the ones where I do well is when I can like react quickly and I kind of so anyways that yeah, I would say I like those types of games. I like worker placement games. Um, I mean, Lords of Waterdeep, I still love that game so much. And Castles of Burgundy is one of my favorites as well. We play a lot of cartographers. I like short games too, like the little roll and writes that are short. And
well,
I
it
play.
sounds it's what makes me think about when you talk about that, like for example, you talk about just the thought process, like that's even with one of the newer ones in my collection, like Hadrian's Wall, where there's so many decisions, and I just enjoy challenging myself with it. I don't ever claim to be particularly good at it. I'm not at this point. I would say I'm probably really bad at it, but I love there's not too much choice, but there's enough choice that I can think about it and go back and say, oh yeah, that probably would have been a way to go. And
That
I
game
enjoyed it.
looks so good, but it looks overwhelming from just looking at the
It
sheet.
does.
I
It it
yeah.
it is, but I don't know that I'll ever master it. So you're probably that might be an accurate description. I'm not prepared to give a review or even a review thought on it because I know I love it. It's a great game for me individually. Um, it's very soloable, is what I will say.
Okay.
Um, that's a fair description, I think, at this point, but I can say. You know, you obviously in the work that you're doing with these games that you're playing, there's a lot of different types of components, a lot of different, whether it be meeples or coins or whatever it might be. Have you developed a favorite type of thing to work with, or does it really depend on the project? Because obviously certain things maybe you have a little bit more flexibility with from shape and color variability. Like meeples, you can get them in pretty much every color, obviously easier than maybe coins.
Right. Um, yeah, I would say I don't have a ton of metal coins. So when it comes time to do something that looks like metal, that's where it's a bit challenging. But I would say in terms of components, the ones that I use probably the most, the Tiny Epic games components, the little rockets from Tiny Epic Galaxies, the dinosaurs from Tiny, like those make it almost every piece, because they're so small, so they fill in the holes. Um, and if I need to make something thin, I can put it on its side, and like it just those ones are so versatile. Um, I would say I don't know. My favorites are always animeeples, like the ones from New York Zoo.
Oh yes,
whenever I get a chance to. Yeah, the ones from
those are fun.
Endangered, those brown otters that are on their back, like that's the cutest thing. I just, yeah, I really, really like the one from Everdell.
I was wondering if Everdell was going to come up. I'm laughing because I don't know why, but the Everdell pieces from Spirecrest are literally sitting on my desk right now.
I
So
don't have that one.
they've got they're in a bag, but they're really big.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, those are huge.
they're traversing like you're traversing the weather on one part of the map while drafting in the other area. So yeah, you actually have the animals can your characters can ride those. It's kind of cool.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I didn't know those like that they were so big and which animals were in there, but yeah, I would say those are probably my favorites and the ones I use the most. Um, yeah, like meeples, I always try and fit some in just because they're so iconic. Um, and I have some in off colors that I purchased, since I started doing this, just because there are certain colors that are harder to come by. So
Right.
if I ever need them, then I have.
Yeah, that's like at PAX Unplugged, for example, you've got the booth that sells like 20 million different colored everythings. So I
Yeah,
can
I'll probably, if I ever make it to PAX Unplugged, then I'll probably have to bring some money and get some components.
and I can only speak for PAX Unplugged. I haven't been. I'm the first to admit. I wish I could get to a Gen Con or something like that. But PAX Unplugged, I can say there was someone there who sold all the different parts, and
Nice.
it was very helpful. I'm going to, and I am hoping because my messenger is being really funky, and normally things don't pop up. So I'm hoping Messenger. No one message me right now if you're watching. But I want to share a little bit just with people about your Kickstarter. So as I'm over here, I mean, really, like, look at these games. We got Role Player, which I can just get so excited about. Honey Buzz, which my wife wants to get me and has on a waiting list for. So I'm excited about these. These games are all very really well known. And there's Arnic. I want to stop right here because that is just so cool. This is the kind of stuff you're going to get in the calendar. Layout
The calendar
wise,
and prints. People
yes,
in the pledge manager can add prints. I'm offering 8x8 and 12x12. So, and then if you order 3, you get a discount for quantity. So yeah, if you want to decorate your game room, your office, whatever, go nuts. There's going to be options.
and there's still ones to be revealed. So
Yes.
let's be clear about that.
Yes.
So I know people have stuff to look forward to. So
Yeah.
if you're watching this and not everything's been revealed yet at this point, go ahead, check it out, and stay tuned for what's coming. I think the prints are so important because more and more, I mean, I've literally, you can't see it at the angle that I'm at, but I've got like all the Raiders of the North Sea boxes on my wall because I have the
They're
big
so
box.
gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
We ordered the puzzle from like the new artwork box, or like the new, which one I mean, like the Raiders box, the collector's edition or whatever,
Yes.
that came out with that mountain of gold. And
It's so cool. If it was right next to me, I'd pull it out and show everybody but it's sitting somewhere on a shelf behind me. And it is it was one of the most beautiful pieces of art. Yeah.
And so we ordered the puzzle of that art piece just because it's so pretty to look at. And I'm a huge Miko fan. I guess I should have mentioned him earlier when you asked. Yeah, Miko is like one of my favorite as well. I didn't think of it because I'm looking at like what's on my walls, but yes, like Board Game Artist, hands down, he's one of my favorite. We have so many of his games, and but yeah. So I mean, like if people are looking at stuff to hang, like like I said, there's going to be options, and a lot of people have said, well, I don't really use a calendar, so I guess I'll just hang it in my game room. So yeah, whether or not you use a calendar for the actual purpose, I mean, you put it in your game room and then you have the sheet to do your 10x10 that's right at the back. And and we unlock those cute little meeple stickers. They're so adorable, and I was so excited to include those last year, so I'm really happy that we unlocked that. Because yeah, I don't know, it's super fun when you finish your game from your 10 by 10, you put that little sticker on. I don't know. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this back up so people could see, but this is just that example that's in there, and I do think the 10 by 10 is exciting, and fun to do. I always challenge myself to do that, and my family, and we do those 10 by 10. So that's another great example of something that people might be thinking about. You talk about, obviously we've talked about the games and artists. I got to ask you, from a game perspective for you, how important is the art, and has that perception maybe changed over time? Because I mean, I know you mentioned Castles of Burgundy, but for the most part, a lot of the games you're mentioning, I mean, obviously visually stunning. New York Zoo looks great on a table. A lot of the games we're talking about look great on a table, and they, as I've said a few times in the past few episodes, they have that board game convention draw that you walk by the table. Oh, what's that? And so how's that philosophy for you as a gamer?
I would say artwork is probably more important to me than it should be. I mean, we bought Castles of Burgundy pretty early on in our gaming, like in the last couple of years. I would say that was one of our first games, and yeah, when you look at the box, it's like, ugh, that looks dry. But the game is so good. So, I mean, from that point on, it's not like I was judging games by what they look like, because you always had that one to reference where it's like, no, but this one doesn't look great, but it's amazing. So, however, there's games that definitely the art is what draws me to it, to look into the game further. For example, like Sagani, which is, it's an abstract game, but it has these cute little creatures on it. And when I saw a post on Instagram about the game, I was like, I got to look into this one some more. And then it looked like, okay, this is right up my alley. I gotta get this game. But yeah, it was originally the artwork, which really is not that, that prevalent in the game per se. Like you see it a little bit here and there, but that's not what the game is about. It's not about the art at all. So, but it does appeal to me. Like nice card games. Fox in the Forest by Renegade Games is still one of my favorite. The artwork on it is just so stunning. So it definitely, for me, it has, it's important. And there's also something to be said about a game that you set up and it has that table presence. The cards are colorful. It has those components that are fun to play with. Like it's a tactile experience for me as well, which is why like the online gaming is so difficult to make it worth the time. Like people will say, oh, well, we should totally schedule something. And it's like, yeah, okay, but it's not the same. And I struggle with that. Like I enjoy the time spent to play, but it's definitely missing something. So because I really like playing with the components.
It's interesting too. I'm just gonna make a quick callback. I had some great guests on the channel. I should link them up in this video since I'm referencing them after the fact, but who talked about playing board games together online over Zoom, and they still the tactical. And I mean, I have played, for example, Quacks of Quedlinburg, and it works online.
Yeah.
So there's ways, right? You did mention Renegade Game Studios, and you gave me, I did not set this up, folks, but you perfectly set me up to highlight your Instagram because I really want to.
Oh. I thought you're like pointing behind you, and I could see all of your games. Like,
oh yeah, they are all there. I will joke for everyone. I not joke, but for anyone who is actually watching that shelf has evolved. It has become, except for a few games because it's not perfect. That's all like my most played or my favorite games outside of the ones that are upstairs in the family section, which means the family plays them too. So that you can't see them all because they're not all there, but that section has evolved since I've done it, constantly changing. But look, this is just a great example. For anyone's interested, please make sure you go check her out here on Instagram. That is Board Game Creations. I mean,
Art Creations.
Yeah, Board Game Art Creations. Let's get that right. Board Game Art Creations. You can I mean, look at this. This is just, again, this caught my eye. This is why I immediately reached out to you and I had to have you on talk about this stuff. It's just so cool. So go check out the Instagram, give a follow. Also on Twitter and all these other places as well. But the Instagram I know is where people probably can best catch up on your work. So I'm going to send them over there. Before I let you go, I do have a very important question. And as I ask everyone on this show, you've had some experiences. You've done these Kickstarters. You've created art. What's the advice that you give to people, in particular in your case, for the Kickstarter side of things? Because you mentioned, just as an example, the shipping, which has recently come up as a big challenge. And obviously, when you have something time sensitive, and in your case, extremely time sensitive, how do you prepare to do a massive project like this? Because Kickstarter is not just about talking to people and saying, look at this cool thing I have. It's preparing for it, going through it, and then what happens after. What advice do you give to those people who say, I want to do a Kickstarter?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, in order to reduce your own stress, the best thing is to have your manufacturers figured out prior to. Last year, mid Kickstarter, I had to switch manufacturer. So that was a nightmare. It actually cost me an extra stretch goal because I didn't know if I could unlock something that might not be doable for a reasonable price, so to have the manufacturer figured out, to have the pricing done so that you know what you can afford to include as stretch goals, or that obviously you need to know the quantities that you might be making. You give them a range, you get quotes, and then you pick your manufacturer and you're like, okay, I'm going to go with you because I like your bulk price for this much or whatever. And then you kind of see how many you get during the Kickstarter, and then you start to confirm things during your pledge manager. The pledge manager is also a big part of it. So when I recommend during the Kickstarter, basically, because you're not always on there, answering messages. At least I'm not, because I'm not a publisher. So I have way less questions and comments than most games on Kickstarter. So during the Kickstarter is when you start setting up your pledge manager, because you want to make sure you have your late pledge open as soon as possible, because people will miss your Kickstarter and then they will say, I missed it. Where can I go for it? Oh, right here. You can go to this page and pledge. So you want to make sure you have that ready soon after it closes. And then, having shipping is the least fun part of it all. But having a good fulfillment company that I think you're able to communicate well with and prepare and have pricing ahead of time so that you know who you're going to use. Because the longer, you wait to figure that out, then you're scrambling. So, the more you can figure out ahead of time, because your fulfillment company is the one that is going to take care of, where you're getting stuff manufactured. For example, the calendars for me and the magnets are in China. So getting the stuff here, so they coordinate all that between themselves, which is why you need a fulfillment company, because I'm not going to go and call someone in China and figure out which port it's like. This is not my job. Like, I need somebody to do this for me. So to keep all that in mind, if you're handling things overseas, is definitely like a recommendation for sure. I would say marketing. People underestimate marketing, but getting your the word out early, that Kickstarter pre-launch page, having that up and ready early, because people tend to wait a little bit too last minute to make that page go live for people to sign up. But depending on your project, it takes a while for Kickstarter to approve it, especially if you've had previous project, and that's more maybe for games. Mine gets approved automatically. It's seriously, I submit and it's like, boom, approved, because I think it's because it's not a game, and I don't know. But
it still goes to say the preparation for it, you have it ready to go. get that out.
Get it out, because people will sign up for your Kickstarter, and then when you launch, they get notified and will show up for you. To have a landing page, to have a newsletter sign up, because yes, people will sign up to get notified on launch, but if they don't pledge, then you don't get to keep that email, right? So to have a newsletter as well, where people can sign up and you can send out news periodically. Be out there on social media, in groups, be involved. Don't just spam, like make posts that are engaging, that people will want to interact with you as a creator. They'll want to ask questions, or I don't know. There's definitely a lot to it.
Look, I realize there could be a masterclass in this. I could bring a million people on from different angles, but the advice is all, I know, helpful. I want to give also a shout out because I know you're involved over there to Facebook group Board Game Revolution, which does a really great job. It's a great community, very well run. So I want to make sure we give a shout out to that. So go check that out. Obviously, please go check the Kickstarter out. I thank you so much for spending this time to talk about today. Is there anything else or anyone else you kind of want to mention? I always like to give an opportunity here at the end because obviously these projects are projects that have a lot of support and help. And I know that, no one does it alone in the long run.
Right. I mean, Thomas from Board Game Revolution has always been so helpful, and he helps me spread the word. And I've had a few people behind me during this process help me with feedback, in regards to the Kickstarter page. The community as a whole, the support that I've been getting from the publishers that I partnered with, but also other people in the industry that have been sharing the campaign when it went live, that's been really overwhelming to me, to see how many times I would see my page on launch day where it's like, hey, go check this out. And it was just, I'm so thankful for all of the people in the community that have decided to, give me a boost and help my campaign fund, because it takes a whole team to sort of get the word out. And like somebody said recently, like I'm a little fish in a big pond. I need all the shares I can get, and I need all of the backers I can get. It's not as if, if I don't, talk about it on this one place, it's fine. Like it's a few backers. No, like I need all the backers I can get, because the more, obviously the more backers I get, the more I can give back and provide in terms of choices, or, because I was explaining that on another podcast recently, is, obviously I can't offer, every piece of artwork on a coffee mug, because they limit you in how many you can print, so it's like, okay, well, right now I have 3 choices, but maybe if we reach a certain amount, I'll be able to afford, paying more, so that I can add another option in there. So obviously, like, the more backers, the better, because then I can start to add more in there. So if you like what I do, please support me.
Yes, please go check out the Kickstarter. If this is after the fact and there's still available to get, they'll check it out then. Regardless, go check out her fantastic work on her Instagram, as we shared a little bit earlier. Links for that are going to also be in the description for this video. So no worries, you can go click over there. I want to thank you again so much for joining me. The other thing I want to mention before we end here is an important note for those who want to tune in and have a chance to see this before tomorrow, which is June 10th. But Joseph Chen, designer, Fantastic Factories, coming on to the show. So that's going to be a really good one. So I hope that you can come hang out with me again tomorrow night, same time, same place, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And that's going to be another great conversation here on Creators Corner. You can always go back and check the playlist. And if you like what you see on Creators Corner and you think there's someone who deserves their story to be told, they don't need to be a big name. don't care about that. What I care is we've got a good story that's worth sharing, and they're a designer, an illustrator, an artist in this industry. I want to know. So please send them my way. And I love featuring people and getting their stories out there. So with that said, thank you for being a part of Creators Corners today.
Thanks so much for having me.
It was a real pleasure, and the best of luck with the rest of the Kickstarter. I know you've got still 14 days left, so plenty of time for people to go over and pick up a calendar, 2 or 3. Sounds like it'd make a great Christmas present. So that's all I'm saying. So
thank you so much.
That said, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming aboard the Tabletop Express, and I will see you all very soon. Hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow night.